Hello.
Hello, everybody. Please, can you come and join me at the front? A bit awkward now. Everyone's like taking their seats. You can sit right there. I'm going to grab my. Hello, everybody. What's that? Oh, thanks. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Red Badger and welcome to our continuous delivery event tonight. My name is Harry and I'm a strategy lead at Red Badger. Firstly, welcome to our office. I hope you've all got a beer / something to drink. It's going to be a series of lightning talks tonight, and we should be done by 9 o'clock, and we will be going to the pub afterwards, I think. First things first, I think everybody here tonight is here tonight to learn a little bit about what continuous delivery is, but most importantly, why does it matter? So as an industry, we've been talking about it for a long time. Whether we're talking about the acceleration of customer value and getting products delivered to them faster, whether it's about de-risking releases and getting code into production sooner, or actually whether it's about breaking down organizational silos and getting people to collaborate across the business. But the truth is that most organizations are not able to get to the holy grail of continuous delivery, often due to non-technical reasons, such as organizational culture. And so what we'd like to talk to you a little bit about tonight is some of our real-world experiences and some of our clients' real-world experiences in making it happen. The challenge is really that it touches so many parts of an organization, and it's not just about the technology, it's about the people and the skills that you have, and about the cultural change within that. And that's really what we believe at Red Badger technology is all about. Those three things combined to make the change. So a few bits of housekeeping before going into the talks. So firstly, the loos are just out the door that you came through to your left. There are no fire drills planned tonight. So if you do hear the fire alarm, please go downstairs. Please don't use the lifts. If you have any questions, I think there's someone here. If you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A session at the end with all of our speakers, but you can also submit your questions prior if you go to Slido, so sli.do, and the hashtag is CICD. But of course, if you have any questions, you can ask our speakers in the pub at the end. And we will be recording this session. So if you want to share with colleagues or if you want to reflect on any of the information tonight, you can watch it at your leisure at a later date. So enough from me. I really hope you discover something, you learn something, and most importantly, you enjoy tonight. And without further ado, I will hand over to Reg, who will be talking about his experiences in embedding a continuous delivery culture and how you measure success on the journey. Thank you.
Hey guys. Cool. So I'll just quickly introduce you to Nandos. We're like a little known chicken and chips business. We don't do too bad, actually. So it all started in like 1987. This is Fernando and Robbie down in Rosettenville in South Africa, and they found this little place called Chicken Land. They tasted the peri-peri chicken and was like, this stuff is amazing. The people will love it. And now we are all over the world and selling chicken and chips, right? So it's like an amazing sort of thing of they just believed and started in the wrong place and really took it really, really far. So we're in 24 countries now. We operate a highly federated business, or decentralized, like the countries operate independently. We don't control, or we don't have world domination or anything like that. It's like they all operate independently, but we have 24 countries. Some numbers. We employ 34,000 Nandokas, or Nandokas is our employees around the world. We have 1,217 restaurants, it like goes up by like 20 a month probably around the world. We support 1,850 farmers around, well, mostly in Southern Africa, because we come from Southern Africa as a business. So we try and give back. So we do, I'll go into a bit more, but basically to buy all of these 290 tons of peri-peri or chilies, we basically go down to Southern Africa. We provide farmers with seedlings for the chili plants. We help them to actually look after the chilies. We then guarantee that we will buy those chilies back. And we buy at wet weight instead of dry weight. So we basically pay more for our own chilies than we normally would. And just because we think it's the right thing to do, right? Not for any other reason, it's just the right thing to do. And then a very little known fact about Nandos is we have 22,500 like pieces of art, and this is all South African artists as well. So we like it's mostly around like when you go to the restaurants, you see like the art pieces around. Those are all art pieces that we've bought from like South African artists, and they like down in the Spear Trust. So amazing collection of art. If you go to King's Cross, Nandos, it's the most expensive piece of art. So you can try and seek it out. It's massive. You can't miss it, but you won't know it's a piece of art. Yeah, and so like I said, it's like we basically are really a people business. We really care about giving back to people, right? So like I mentioned, like the chili farmers, we've got a program all around getting rid of malaria. So we basically raise every year. We have most of our funding that we raise goes to like getting rid of malaria. So if you hear anything about like if you like we sell these bracelets, we've got like events that we cycle down to Brighton where we try and raise money and all sorts of stuff. So like, you can get involved. Like malaria is actually for the first time ever starting to rise again and not going down, right? Because people, it's like not an agenda topic anymore. So it's like actually really important to start getting back involved with malaria, and we'll do a big effort this year as well. Coming out like sort of October time, we'll start like talking about this a lot more. So on to some stuff that's happening today and the way we work today. So I thought to help us think about what continuous delivery can do, I'll just, I've only been at Nandos a year, so like I'll just kind of talk about the things I've discovered there while I've been there for a year, right? So, right, so watermelon and feta salad. This is a product that launched last week, right? So like made it onto the menus, amazing, yay. So yeah, this is a description there. And the reason why I put this up is like, we have a food innovation team that basically like work all the time to try and create new recipes for a changing diet, right? So less and less people are eating meat. So we have to think about how we actually keep like innovating in our food space. So we come up with stuff like this, which is actually really exciting. And it goes through like a massive process, and there's millions of recipes being created to just test this. But then once it's created, we have to now start selling this in our restaurants. So I'll ask this question. How long do you think it takes from the end of innovation, right? So it's been approved to go onto sale, for it to make it onto our menus and be sold? How long do you think that process takes to update all the systems, the suppliers, everything?
1 year. 6 weeks.
So it's about basically 6 weeks closest. It's 2 months basically, right? So 2 months of human effort. It's like a food quality team. It's like the menu team. It's like the supplier team. All of these different teams all have to work together. So we have one person that's just dedicated to just getting one item, like coordinating all these different teams to get it onto the menu. And it's actually really complicated. So I thought like I'll go into a little bit of what happens. How does it actually make it on, right? So we've got like, oh, we're going to put this thing on the menu, watermelon salad. We asked some guys, can you make this for us? And they go, yep, it works on my machine. Awesome. You can now roll it out, right? And this is a pretty good one. It works with my body, but it actually doesn't. So yeah, it's a little bit that's currently what happens, right? So these guys create the artifacts on their machines, and then they go to a classic thing, which is like an approval board, right? So, because how do you make sure that the thing you're going to release is not going to break anything else? The best thing to do is fill out a Word document, go to a meeting of people that have no idea what you're changing right now, ask them for approval, and they say yes, and then you go, cool, I can now take this to the next step, right? I can actually start my deployment. So, yep, so there are our zip files, our Word document describing what to do, and then like we have some people that are just like furiously doing a bit of copying and pasting. So they go, cool, I'll copy this thing from there, copy that. They execute some bash scripts. And then this is probably one of the worst things. This is actually not a real stored procedure, in case you're wondering. They actually go and type SQL commands into live production systems and update live databases by typing stuff. So really scary things that happen. And then we have these things like pet servers, basically, right? So we do this test on a development server. And then we do it on a staging server, and then we do it on a production server. But what happens is that the development server and the production server is actually completely different. They look nothing like each other. They have no resemblance whatsoever. The staging server is actually not even on right now, so I don't know how you tested it. All right? Oh, we'll just do it in production. It's fine. It's gonna be okay. Hope is a strategy. It's all good. Yep, so we released, and then somebody phones and go, hey, did you know that watermelon and feta is actually $8.95 instead of $9.95? And we're like, oops. And then we figure out, like, where is this person actually phoning us from, and what went wrong? It's like, oh, they're actually on the mobile app and not on the website, and that's why the price is different. And so somebody forgot to actually tell the mobile team that, well, this thing is updating, and you need to get the new feed from the new system. Right, so cool. And then the other thing that happens is, like, this is just like, sorry, like a little, so like that's the release process of the salad that happens, right? So the other thing that happens is, like, this is a real world scenario. Opening and closing times are actually quite important. And we have a takeaway and delivery business. So somebody forgot to update the takeaway and delivery spreadsheet to say, we're closed on this day. So somebody went and ordered a takeaway. Actually, 4 people did. They walked to the restaurant and they turned up and was like, oh, we're closed today. I was like, and this is like all of the sort of stuff that happens if deployment processes don't go wrong, right? So you have to like continuously like make sure your data is consistent. So I tried to create like a little bit of a, and this is how we're trying to figure out what to do next, right? Because like when you look at all of this, you go like, this is kind of crazy. Like, how do I make a change here? So created like a quick little measurement framework for figuring out what to do. So deployments are conducted. It's a good thing. Yes, we deploy stuff, but we deploy less than on a monthly basis, right? We maybe every 2 or 3 months we deploy something. So we don't practice our deployments often. Next thing that I've talked about is like development team deploys to virtual environments. So we actually have, like we saw, pet servers, right? So we actually can't replicate our environments really quickly to make sure we test properly. So we have no quality in that sort of measure, in that fashion. We're actually really nervous about these sort of things. The team that develops the things don't actually deploy the stuff, right? So we actually hand over these artifacts to someone else. They take it, and then they try and follow these instructions. But again, the servers are different and everything else is different, so they can't actually do the deployments properly. So I'm trying to like show how little we do this at the moment, right? We actually occasionally put stuff in source control, right? So we sometimes do it, like amazing. This is reality, right? I'm not really joking. I feel like I'm joking, but I'm not. My ears are getting all warm as well. So so we are slowly moving into like having all of our code in source code, like, and that's just a simple thing, right? Like, but that's where we started off with a really low maturity rating there. the quality, like I said, again, you can't actually test the quality because there's no testing being done. So like, there's no automated way saying like, yes, this thing is working exactly the way we expect it to be. And we like, I didn't actually put it on here, but like in terms of observability, we actually don't know if the thing we launched is working the way we expect it to work either. Like it's a lot of just going back, checking, doing stuff. Yeah, so I'll just data schemas and data migrations is part of the deployment. Like we have that thing where you go and type some stuff into SQL and you update it, that's crazy. Like how does that happen, right? So and then I think that the last 2 points is all around this thing of like having different consumers of our tools, not knowing that we're updating and working, and so like we don't have clear product owners that says, this is a product, this is why it's important, this is why everyone should be updating all of these sort of things. And this is just like a very simple scale that I just put up like pretty much today. So this is our score, right? We score a 35. Is that a good score or a bad score? Lower scores are better. Yeah, so basically, if you're doing like daily deployments or hourly deployments and all those sort of things, you'll be in the 1 to 9 range and then 10 to 18. Anyway, this is just like, again, it just shows you, it's a simple way of me trying to measure how we actually are moving forwards or not moving forwards, right? So it's like just a stake in the ground. We can go, this is where we think we are today, right? Because we want to know if we're trying to change things, are we actually improving or not? So we need to find or have a way of measuring what we're doing. So good, we know we're pretty shit at the moment. So why can't we make it better? Like what's wrong in terms of making this better? Here's another question for you guys. This is a Rubik's Cube. It's 3 by 3 by 3. If I want to change this Rubik's Cube to be 4 by 2 by 2, how do I do it? That's it, yeah. Take a hammer, smash it to bits, and then put it back together again, right? That's very simple, easy. Can't believe you guys didn't get that. The other thing that happens with a Rubik's Cube is like, while you're trying to solve it, you're turning things, and then other things are turning on the other side. So you think you solved this problem on this side, and then you turn, and then, oh, that problem you solved before is now unsolved, and you need to go back again and retrace your steps a little bit, right? So this is effectively like, kind of like how our systems work today. It's like they're really tightly coupled and like these big monoliths. So when we try and change something, something else is changing as well. And we just have no control over that, right? So that's kind of prohibiting us from actually moving quite fast, right? Because we don't know what's going to change when we change. The other thing is like the people skill set, right? So we just have like people that's been around and haven't had the exposure to more modern sort of practices and approaches to doing things. And so it's just like it's really just, we have existing people that just can't do this sort of stuff. Yep, the classic environments that are unavailable. This is like sort of one of the biggest things that we're struggling with at the moment, is trying to just replicate an environment. It's because it's all so tightly coupled and all on a big, like it's one big Microsoft SQL server with one big IIS server. And then when you try and copy it all down, it takes maybe about 10 hours to copy from one machine to the other machine because it's just so big. And so like that's not really effective either, right? So it can work, but it rarely actually works. Yeah, so this is the way we've always done it. Like, why would I change? Like, it works, right? Kind of. It's like, if it breaks, we just quickly fix it. It's okay. So there's a little bit of like sticking our heads into the sand. And then, yeah, like a good bit of whack-a-mole. We all love that. It's like you smash something, something else pops up. So we fix this thing, and then, oh, something else broken. Fix, fix, fix. And this is kind of the way we're living today. So these are all the things that kind of slows us down, right? Or prevents us from moving into continuous delivery. This is the other thing. It's like, so our scope at the moment, the way we budget and think about the things we need to deliver every year, is set at the start of the year. So our scope is set at the start of the year. So if we go actually, the way to go faster is to introduce a better build process for some, or deployment process. Like, we can't actually do that, right? Because that's not in the scope. It's not agreed as a thing that needs to be delivered this year. So, and you have to go back and argue this point quite a bit. So we need a bit more flexibility in our scope. The budget can be fixed, but like the scope needs to be different, right? So, and yeah, there we go. Like, let's start measuring again. Yeah, so I won't go through these in like a massive detail, but it's like, yeah, so currently there's like very little time for improvement, like, right? So, or having, actually, like, sorry, this point is wrong. There's no time for improvement. Like, we actually find that our teams have loads of time to do improvements. They just choose not to, right? So, because maybe they don't know, maybe they're scared, and all that sort of stuff. And that's the reality, right? So often people will go, oh, there is actually time to do this stuff, but they will get something else to keep themselves busy with. So releases, like, we have like loads of these things. Like, when we release something, something else breaks, right? Because the systems are so connected. So, for example, like on the salad that we just released, it's great, it's running, all sort of stuff, but it kind of takes a week for it all to run through the system before you get the reporting that like starts saying, how is this item performing? And then it's only at that point in time we realize, actually, that it's not really reporting correctly into the right areas. And then we have to go back and modify those sort of things, right? So it's like, it's not even that you can see these breaks and changes that happen. Talked about the people with the right skills and environments are sort of cool. We actually have very little auditing and compliance issues for us. Like, that's not a thing that's blocking us from moving forwards. We don't have an external body that tells us exactly how to do things. So that's kind of a nice place to be in. And then we actually have restricted windows of when we can release work. Like, our business operates from, it operates basically from 8 a.m. in the morning till about 12 p.m. And everything needs to be running like 100% at that time, right? So we can't modify anything during that time, because that's when we trade, basically. So we have to be trading all the time. Yeah, and then like the biggest thing for me is like this tightly coupled systems. There we go, like another score, yay! But we've done quite badly again. We like right down here in the bottom, right? So we like we actually are not really mature in terms of removing our blockers. So the way I'm trying to solve this is I've got like two approaches, basically. It's creating a bit of a North Star, like creating something where I can go, this is what good looks like. This is how we should be operating. This is what we should be thinking about. The first iteration of this said headless Nandos, but like that was a bit insensitive, you know, headless chickens and stuff. So yeah, so we went with API first Nandos. But our domain is actually really well understood. Like, we do all of these things that are listed here are the things we do every day, right? Like, and those are domains, and they're really easy to understand. And it's been the same for over 20 years. Like, we've been doing the same stuff. And so we just will like focus on creating these different services that will then be able to drive our organization going forwards, and we can have experiences sit on top of these microservices. We are switching from a project mindset to a product mindset. So traditionally it was like commission some work, get somebody to do it, and then it comes back in again. And then it's like, okay, that was awesome, that's done now, after loads of struggle to get it into production. But then the product sort of almost ends and it dies. It's not evolving anymore. So we can't actually like we lose all of the knowledge. Everything goes away, and like we can't actually evolve in saying like, oh, this is what our customers are asking for. Let's change it quickly. We go, let's phone those guys we hired like 2 years ago and change something. It's like, it just doesn't work. So we are now moving into like having our own product owners, like hiring our own developers, you know, basically creating our own destiny in a way. Switching to a bit of a modern software stack, and this is not that modern, I would say. But if you know where we come from, we basically come from a Microsoft SQL Server and a C# sort of area, but like really old .NET sort of areas. And now we just sort of like really going like almost all the way out into like a Kubernetes, Docker, Istio, you know, sort of Golang world where we run most of the things in the cloud. And this is a platform, I think Steve's going to talk about it a bit more later on, but like we are working on like creating this sort of environment where it attracts talent outside, but it also means we can actually move really quickly. Yeah, I chucked in there, it's like, this is like, because nothing was in source control before, now everything is in source control, and everything is controlled. All of the quality measures are set into creating pull requests, reviewing those, and then merging them back in again, right? So it's just like a simple thing, but it never happened before. And this is the lovely deployment to production, like with loads of lovely lines and things that Steve will talk about later. Yeah, so I thought like, cool, like measuring that, right? So we are now deploying like basically hourly, like it's quite easy for us to deploy in this environment. We can spin up new environments. If we need to do a performance test or load test, like just like create a replica of the production environment in like about 10 minutes or so. And all of these things just like really makes us like move really fast, right? It's like, this is, if you just adopt those sort of things, this is what we can do. So this is our North Star. This is what we're trying to work towards. But to get there, I can't just keep buying people from outside and creating these amazing things. I have to like actually do it myself internally. So I'm working through the legacy at the moment. And the way to work through the legacy is pretty much this, right? We are training. So we could have, I've got about 40 guys that basically just, all they do is support. They keep the lights on. Right? That's their job on a daily basis. And so we say, we're not going to like get rid of you or anything like that. We are actually retraining all of these people, right? So we have this massive program where we're taking everyone on a journey and saying like, what are the skills, doing assessments, and then saying, what are the things that you're missing? And then actually training all these people up, right? It's like, it's part of us giving back to the communities and the people. And this year we have this thing around being the best me. So when you turn up to work, you can be the best thing you ever want to be, and Nandos will support you by doing that, right? So training is very important. Recruit as many people as you can with the right skills, right? It's like, literally, you need the right skills. So just get the right people, right? So this is a saying we have, it's the people that make the chicken, right? It's not like we don't have machines that make the chicken or anything like that. It's like we have real people grilling chicken every day, and they actually make really good chicken, and people love that chicken, right? So we can change it. It's the people that make the services that we consume, like, which will be amazing, right? If we can sort of say that in the future. And then, yeah, focus on removing our biggest pain points. So sorting out our environments is like a massive thing, right? So like being able to replicate our environments, like moving between these areas is so crucially important. And the only way we can decouple our solutions, which is like the other big point, is by like literally taking an application that we have or an existing service and start carving that off and start moving it into a future world of like having proper environments that you can replicate really quickly and move on. And then, yeah, make sure we have the right skills. Yeah, and that's kind of like our journey. Oh yeah, sorry. Get some help from some of the Red Badger guys as well. they seem to be all right. But I think the important thing is like we actually have Red Badger working with us, and there's a few other agencies working with us as well. But the biggest thing is that we are actually a blended team. We're like not like a Red Badger team and another company's team. It's basically, it's like my internal team plus the Red Badger team plus the other company's team all working together to try and create this platform going forwards, right? So that's the only way you can actually like do the knowledge transfer, get the skills transferred, and actually like get to people doing the right things. And then lastly, it's like this stuff just really takes time, right? So I've been there a year and 2 months, and I'm a pretty impatient person, so I get really agitated. But the thing is, like, you have to be patient, and you have to measure, you have to learn, and you have to keep changing. Every day is like a change. So yeah, that's kind of our journey and what we've been on.
Thanks, Reg. Thanks, Reg. I believe you also can make chicken, as I understand. All the people at Nandos have to go and work in Nandos when you start.
Yeah. So you have to do 4 shifts when you go in, and you have to learn how to make chicken.
Cool, thank you. So next up, talking about the delivery practicalities and process changes that you need to make is Sean.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? We're here to learn about continuous delivery. And the part I wanted to chat about is that whole idea and the promise of speed. You know, like moving at light speed and that whole vision that we're sold. It's like, hey, we used to deploy stuff monthly and now we can get to hourly, maybe minutes, maybe all the time. Sounds like the promised land. It sounds really great. Why wouldn't you want that? Like, the only thing that you really need to do is just break apart all of your monoliths into microservices, and you need to just do some sort of like trunk-based development and deploy every single change immediately. And boom, you have continuous stream of customer value going to the customers all the time. So we do it, and we get something like this. And you know, I think a lot of times, like the trap that's a bit easy to fall into here is it's not a one-step process, right? You can't go immediately from the months to the minutes. Like, you got to make those intermediate steps along the way, and it is quite hard. Kind of like using the analogy that Reg said, like if you have to like break it apart to put it back together again, it's sort of like, where do you actually start when you're trying to figure out, am I building the left side of the Rubik's Cube first or other pieces of it? You want to like try and figure out what's going on under the hood here. Why is this such a difficult thing to grapple with when we're trying to change it? One way to frame this just is in terms of like, what are we thinking? What are some of those attitudes and beliefs around like our ways of working that are preventing us from making that sort of step change? Because what we're really talking about at the end of the day is like the principle behind the continuous delivery is like we're trying to shift left, right? We're trying to take our quality, move it upstream so that it becomes very easy and very simple to automate all of our deployment and pushing value out to the customer. But what happens in the middle along the way is that some of our old ways of working stop us from doing that. But I didn't think that was how we were working in the first place. We're agile, right? Like, we have something that looks a bit like this. We have a delivery flow, and we have a very strong definition of done, and it's customer facing. We do all of our design iteratively. We work in a cross-functional way. We might be practicing Scrum, Kanban is just sort of idealized, right? But like, we know that we have a good flow. We study our lead times and we measure, which is good. But like, the fun part here is to kind of peek under the hood and see like what's actually happening before we get to that strong definition of done, and what's putting us in front of the customer. So if you take a look sometimes at the exit criteria to get out of test, it's sort of like all the different testing that we need to do. We need to do acceptance testing and contract testing, integration testing, and test this, test this, test this. That's the kind of like mindset there. What it's saying is that like getting to this point when we can actually push that thing out, you need to prove that you're right first. And it's that attitude that like production is sacred, right? Like, we can only go so far before we push something out in front of the customer. And we don't want to get to that point where, you know, we might break something and we might have that production outage. What if there was a different way, right? What if instead of having to prove that it was correct up front, you were to change the way that you work so that it's okay to fail and you do it in a way that's controlled and safe, so that you can take those first steps on the journey and make it easier to get to done quickly. So presto, let's do that. Let's change the model and actually move done left and push our quality upstream like we said we would. I mean, it's not done in this case, so just a little bit of air quotes here. But what does it mean to work in this way? It goes back to that mindset piece of it, like accepting a few things. Like, one, like, we're never really done, right? This is the whole idea that we can't know everything up front. And that's why we, even here, do our design and our development incrementally, right? We're now in the world, you know, hopefully post-waterfall in some sense, that like we don't have to do all the knowledge understanding up front. We can't know everything up front. So let's just push it forward and learn along the way. But in order to do that, we can't actually not test, right? It means that the quality has to come upstream, and we need to find ways to make it safe to actually get an immediate movement into our production environment. And so that other fundamental concept is that like putting things out into production doesn't have to be a big event, because we can separate the idea of putting something in production, a deployment, from the idea of making it live to the customer in the release. And then there's that other bit of mindset there that like we had our test organization, all the different testing that we were doing to say that, well, this is the way that we can prove that the customer experience works the way that we think it is. But there's another way of thinking about it, which is actually the best person to test the customer experience is the customer. You put the customer at the end of the process, and we can find a way to put the releases in front of the customer and make them the ultimate judge of whether it's good or not. So, okay, let's change that too. So I'll use a couple different words here. Separate the idea of your deployment stage from your release stage. Put the customer at the end of your flow, just as they were before. And the automation bit can kind of push you along the way. And this is where the whole like CDP and continuous delivery, continuous deployment to production makes it a non-event. The easier and the faster it is to get changes into production, the faster we can deliver that value. So what does this mean in practice, right? It means that whatever your flow is and whatever your way of working is, there's that kind of cutoff point where you're getting to production. The whole idea is once we're in our phase of deployment or having deployed it into production, the kind of ethos of the team is about delivering it to the customer, but in a way that's safe and maybe progressive, because once it's out here, that's the point at which we're going to flip things on. And there's some engineering practices that support this along the way. Like hopefully we'll see a bit up front, but that whole idea that like, hey, the code doesn't have to be completely done, right? We can deploy very small incremental chunks along the way, and we're going to do it in a safe, controlled way. We can have feature flags, and we can toggle things on and off at will. And we can also, think about how we scope our features in a way that actually makes them really tiny. That concept of like a small blast radius. If we're going to break something, let's do it earlier here. We don't have to risk the whole production system when we actually turn it on. The last bit, of course, is when we're actually studying that behavior, observability becomes very key. We need to be able to learn what's happening, which takes us back to feedback loops. Another one of those agile principles, something that we practice a lot with our clients when we're working together, and that whole idea that Kanban is a way to get that flow and get that learning back into the organization. So you kind of study a bit across this idealized process. Every time we do something, we learn something along the way. We're building our acceptance criteria. We're learning at this stage of the way what the feature should do, how it should work. And we move forward and we learn a bit more. Now we learn how we want to implement it. We are trying to write it in a certain way. When we're up here as well, we're actually learning what it means to put that in front of the customer. That mindset that like the only environment that we have that actually represents production is production. So let's use production here and learn something about it along the way. You can use some techniques that will actually show you those early warning signs. And you can take that back and actually say, maybe we shouldn't turn this thing on right away. Maybe we can roll it out to a small subset of our users. Things like A/B testing are built around that same principle that when we put a change live, it doesn't have to go to the entire world. You can do it in small, controlled ways. But that's a different way of designing your features up front, to do them in a way that you can make them quite small and measurable along the way. So here's what that feedback looks like in practice, right? We have great requirements, kind of before the point of production. We learn things, and we're trying to deliver them as efficiently as possible and just in time. But when you're post-production, and we've said this is a non-event, it's really about that observability. We don't have to learn up front. We have quality built into our earlier process. We don't have to know up front that the system is performing as expected, because we can see it, we can measure it, and we can also learn how our customers are really using it through great analytics and studying the behavior, so that can then inform the acceptance criteria of what we build in the future. And ultimately, take us back to the backlog, building the right ideas, doing it in a way that really creates business value and customer value. And you're always in that constant mode of like testing and learning through like generating hypotheses. I'm going to build a feature in a certain way because I expect this result. And that's something you can measure all the way across your flow. A couple more principles to throw in here as well. Like these ones kind of from the Lean playbook, that whole idea that like you want to deliver as fast as possible, but you also want to decide as late as possible. That tension between the two, to me, I think the way I put those two together is to say, this is really about like minimizing the cost of changing your mind, and the idea that you can reverse your decisions in a way that's effective and cheap. Because in the old way of working, we had the whole idea of like, a change approval board and change freezes, and that whole idea that like, there is a big gap between like, we say we're going to do this thing and we should actually do this thing. It's like, well, let's make it that we can change our mind quite easily about it. Let's make that decision just in time. And we need the technology that enables us to do that. So I think of what we're talking about here with some of these techniques are really about giving your team and your organization a bit of a control Z, control Z, like however I say it. That undo switch, right? If the canary build's not working, automated, roll it back, right? Doesn't have to break the whole entire system. And just like over here, when we're really studying, how quickly and how efficiently we can deliver the idea, the value hypothesis into working software for our customers, it's all about delivering as fast as possible, but then deciding as late as possible how long we're actually gonna run that experiment, measure it. And if it's great, then let's keep doing it. We get that kind of virtuous cycle going with our team and with the organization. So that's pretty much it. I mean, this is the last bit of it. It's like, what would you rather pick, right? The continuous delivery flow or the continuous delivery flow, right? It's all about taking those features, those requirements, making them as small as possible, as efficient as possible, and which one's going to get you cleaner at the end of the day, right? I don't mind if like one or two of these things isn't working. I would take this any day when I'm trying to like clean my body. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. We're glad you wash. I think we're now going to swap laptops over before Stu's talk. So if anybody wants to grab a drink, pop to the loo, etc., we'll be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Right, Maria, see you. Brilliant, Rich, well done. Thank you very much.
Hello. Sorry to interrupt the party. So our next speaker is going to try incredibly hard to squash what would be normally 24 hours of him banging on about continuous delivery into 30 minutes plus a demo. But I'd like to welcome our co-founder and chief scientist, Stu Harris.
Thank you. Does this work? Yeah. Technology. Thank you very much for coming. Can you hear me? There's a new switch on top. Hello? Can you hear me? Does that work? Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I'm Stu. I've been doing tech for a long time. Like, first job in 1988. Been around the block 100 times and seen all sorts of pain and suffering. In terms of, honestly, in terms of like, you know, the deployment, releasing sort of thing. One of our clients, in 2014, one of our clients that we started with was developing in India. So I went over to Bangalore to see what they were doing. And they had a whole team, an army of engineers and developers, very clever people, with a 17-week release cycle. So there was out of that 17-week release cycle, there was one release every 17 weeks, like 3.5 releases a year, right? There was six weeks of development time, and then there was a code freeze, and 11 weeks of release hardening and deployment. And when it actually came to deployment day, I had 2 banks of 12 servers, hand-built Windows NT servers. Take one bank down, update the software on each of those manually, and bring that bank in, and then take that bank down and update them all individually and bring that bank up. And that was a 24-hour-long process. So each bank was down for 12 hours. So about an hour per machine to upgrade. And if it went wrong, which it frequently did, because these are like quite big releases, only 3.5 of them a year, you can imagine how many features are crammed in there. When it doesn't work, when it didn't work, they'd like they'd all be on a conference call at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they decide they were going to roll back the deployment and try again the next night. Basically, I mean, you can imagine the pressure that's going, that's on the team that are doing that, and the stress involved, and like everybody's scared to death of the release process. And you think, well, this is wrong, right? Deployment should be a complete non-event. 5 p.m. on a Friday night, off to the pub. Like, you've had 10 deployments already today, and you're not going to notice another one. So what I want to talk about in this talk is, like, we can do a lot better than that. So I want to look at what that North Star is that Reg was talking about earlier, and show you what we've done at Nandos, a bit of a demo, and talk about all the tools and the principles and the mechanisms behind being able to deliver continuously. So lots of little tiny steps, basically. Like, innovation happens, and that's great, quite big steps. But Kaizen, which is Japanese for change for better, is really all about continuously improving things. Like, software continuously evolves. Software, the word soft in there, it's like included in the title. It's soft. It should be agile. It should be malleable. It should be easy to change. So it should be flexible, and we should be able to do that really, really easily. So we've got lots of continuous things, like continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment to production. I want to look at a little bit about what the differences between these things are, and all of them, like, we have to do all of these things to get to continuous improvement. So I want to do it in the context of cloud native applications. A cloud native application has continuous delivery, has CI/CD. It's cross-functional teams that are very DevOps focused. Talk a little about DevOps. A microservices world with containers deployed on Kubernetes. What else is there? And this is what makes cloud native application. But there are lots of things to consider, right? When we decided that we wanted to break our monoliths up into microservices, we really made a rod for our own back. We have, and this isn't all the things. It's a lot of things that we have to think about our services. Managing them manually is just not an option anymore. It cannot be done. You cannot reliably run applications that are made up from microservices in production at scale with high reliability and high availability. If you're doing all these things manually, you can't do it. And so these are now distributed applications. So we've got all these things to think about, and they're hard. These are hard problems to solve. So the Cloud Native Computing Foundation was set up, and these are all the products that are under the Cloud Native Computing Foundation's umbrella. These are the continuous integration and delivery tools up here. We'll look at a few of those that we're using at Nandos. We've got Kubernetes over here somewhere, Istio's here, Linkerd, and Service Mesh, which is really important. But I've just put this up here really just to show you how many tools there are in this space now. And it's just ridiculous that navigating that is actually quite something. But actually, there are lots of, in each area, there are lots of different alternatives. And the alternatives that we're going to look at today aren't, I'm not saying, for instance, you must use these products. These are all open source, by the way. And, so CNCF is a vendor neutral sort of space where these things can grow and evolve and help us on this journey. So that's a lot, right? But let's just look at what the difference is really between continuous delivery and continuous deployment. So there is only one difference really, and that is that continuous deployment to production, is a fully automated process. Like, there's no humans in the loop. So every commit, effectively every push to a branch will get deployed to like a staging area or whatever automatically, and every merge to master will get automatically deployed to production. And that happens, you can't stop it. Like, the only thing that can stop it is a test failing or some kind of validation or quality control that knocks it back, which is great, right? But this change is actually quite big, because now we have to have automation for infrastructure. We have to have automation for network and for application services and security. This is from Puppet Labs. I think it explains it quite nicely, is that actually, there's lots of autos here, and all of those things have to be fully automated. So let's look at some principles that we need to keep in our heads as we go through this journey. We need to separate, I think, CD from CI. Jenkins has been sort of like ruling this roost for quite a long time, and it does CI, and then there's usually a bit of CD at the end of it or whatever. So I think there are better ways than that of doing it. We need to separate release from deployment, and Sean talked about that quite a lot just now, which is brilliant. Deployment is a technical decision. Release is a business decision. We should be deploying all the time. Build features up in production behind feature flags. We'll look at that a little bit as well. Release them progressively to like 1% of users, 2% of users, all the like members of staff, or however you segment your audience. We need full automation. Like, and I say full, I mean 100% automation, which is actually quite hard to achieve. And obviously, you have to automate the things that cause the most pain first. And we do that because everything is code. Like, everything is code. The infrastructure is code. The network is code. The security is code. The code is code. And everything is code. And that code should be declarative as much as possible. So we state our intent. We declare what we want it to be, and something else, the automation makes that happen. It's different to imperative, where we say do this, do this, do this, do this. And so, 10 years ago, deployments were like, do this, a bash script or something like that. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. That's not declarative. Declarative infers that it's idempotent as well. So you can say, like put that declaration in place as many times as you want, and it won't make any difference. Well, we'll come back to that. You'll see some immutable infrastructure, especially. So instead of like modifying things, which is a very imperative thing to do, we replace them with something better. So we improve by replacing the existing things we've got with something better. And containers are all about that, right? Containers are immutable. When we want to update our software, we just create a new container and replace the old one. No humans are allowed anywhere near this, especially not on machines. SSH isn't a thing. And I want to talk a little bit about monorepo and how that can help us. So I've got to be very quick. So full automation, right? So in this picture, I can only see 2 human beings, I think, and they don't seem to be doing very much. I mean, they're certainly not involved in making cars, right? So this is what we need to strive for, I think. Declarative versus imperative, which we've talked about a little bit already. So this works by having control loops. So controllers that run in a cluster or whatever, that are constantly checking to see what you intend to do, checking to see what the reality is, looking at what the difference between those two things are, and acting on that difference to resolve it and to bring it in line. So this goes around, they happen all the time, they run in Kubernetes or whatever. We'll look at some examples about how this can help, and it's actually really important. It allows us to be declarative about our intent. DevOps is a must, like cross-functional teams have to be DevOps focused. DevOps is it's a role, it's a mindset, it's a way of thinking, it's a culture. It's not a thing. Like you wouldn't have a DevOps team or whatever. Like the cross-functional team is DevOps focused. And so the dev part of their role is edit the code, build it, test it, debug it, deploy, analyze, and feedback, and going around that circle. And the ops part of their role is to monitor the deployment, diagnose problems, tune it, feedback, and go around that loop. But it's something that modern engineers do. They do both of those roles now. How does a monorepo help us? So in a monorepo, all of our things live in the same GitHub repo. So we have a monorepo at Nandos now, which is good. where we've got like web servers, we've got applications, APIs, maybe APIs with outside-in testing stuff. We've got all our infrastructure is in there. It's Terraform scripts. Orchestration is in there. The pipeline is in there. Everything is in there. And then when we want to make a change, we can do an atomic commit across the whole monorepo. So when this commit was made, this didn't even exist, but that's fine. You can even change like producer and consumer, both sides of a relationship at the same time, if you want to. I wouldn't necessarily advise to do that. There are safer ways of doing it, but you can, and it basically takes away versioning problems. So like, but you don't have to worry about version 1.1 of this, only working with version 1.2 of that, and so, which can get into a nightmare when you've got like lots of microservices, and then this becomes the version number, which is the commit child, the hash effectively of the content. When it moves to this version, we know that all these things are designed and built to run together and tested to run together. So they've got a fair chance of working together because that's how they've been designed. We keep everything in sync with that single thing. The infrastructure. So this is a platform we've built at Nandos in GCP. This pink bit in the middle is Kubernetes, basically. So it's Kubernetes, which is a service orchestration engine, and that's hosting effectively all of the microservices and making sure that they're always up and allowing us to programmatically replace them, deploy them, upgrade them, manage them, all the operations stuff. We're also running SD on top of that, which is a service mesh, and service mesh gives us extra security, and it helps us. It helps with some of the cross-cutting concerns. Some of the things that all the services have to do are done by the mesh instead of developers having to do them in the service themselves. And there's a whole bunch of observability stuff over here, which is really, really important. Data, which is all data as a service, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't manage those databases. Google does that for us. We've got automation on the SSL certificates and everything, so that's completely, they automatically renew. You don't have to worry about certificates expiring, authentication, and all that sort of stuff. And all of that is stamped out with code. So this is what the code looks like. This is the part of the resource that describes what the cluster looks like, what the logging service to use, what monitoring service to use. See, it's parameterized. So when we stamp out a cluster, these variables are substituted. It's a private cluster configuration. This is the Istio add-on part of it, so that adds Istio in for us. But you can see it's very declarative. There's no do this, then do that, then do that. It's just like, this is what we want it to look like. Make it look like that. Terraform does that for us. This is integration. So, and that is we use BuildKite, which is great. What's different about BuildKite is that the orchestration part of it is a software as a service in the cloud. But the work is actually done inside your organization. So we have a cluster which is just dedicated to building stuff, and that runs pods, and inside those pods there are agents, and the agents take on work from the orchestration in the cloud, do it all, and build our software for us. And this is what the part of the pipeline. So for the menu API, we basically just build a pipeline dynamically based on what's changed in the monorepo. So we analyze all the dependencies in the monorepo and work out what needs to actually be built, and then each bit has a contribution to the overall pipeline. So this one, that's like a lot of things are being built there, but not that, you'll see in a minute, that's not always the case. Continuous delivery, or continuous deployment. We use Argo CD, which is a fairly new thing. Absolutely brilliant. We'll look at that as well. We'll play with this in the demo. But here's two instances of our microservice running inside Istio. So there's 2 containers in each pod, but you can see that they're running. There's 2 of them. They're on different nodes for high availability and resilience and all that sort of stuff. There are secrets there with credentials in them, and the service and all the configuration around the service. And we'll look at this too. And that's what the configuration for the Argo CD. So each of these applications, like menu API, this is doc server. This is one we're going to use. No, right, it's another service. But you can see that it says, I want this path from this repo at this revision to be automatically deployed. And this is a thing called GitOps, which is what, 5 minutes? Oh, I need to speak up. Okay, sorry. GitOps is a way of using Git, which is a really, really great tool for managing source code. So happens we can manage all these declarative configurations. So the declarative configuration of our container orchestration can also be stored there, and that's actually our deployment. This is what we want to deploy. So this is what GitOps normally looks like. So the developer writes some code for their microservice or whatever and checks it into this app code repo. CI system, build kite in our case, runs that and builds it, and builds an image which then pushes that to the container registry. So this is the software development part of it, it's the dev part of it. And then this is the ops part of it. So in the config repo, which could be the same repo as the code repo, if it was monorepo, it would be, that has all the container orchestration in it. So when we're ready to deploy, all we do is we update this declaratively. We say that this is what we want our application configuration to look like. And then an operator that's running inside the cluster is constantly looking at that. And when it sees that there's something new, it then uses the API, the Kubernetes API, to actually do the deployment. So this is a very push thing. This is a very pull thing. So this is the diagram that Red showed us earlier. So all the green bits are CI and the orange bits are CD. So a developer would push to the monorepo. Build kite would see that, it sits on a webhook, and it just sees that a change has been made, that the agents are registered with build kite. They know that the work is divided up. The Docker images are built and they're pushed to the registry. And that's the end of the CI part of it. If all the tests that are running in there as well, there's a whole load of tests that run, if they all succeed, then we also update the image tag of the image we just pushed in the config repo. And then we've got clusters that actually watch this. This is the Argo CD stuff that we were looking at a minute ago. They watch this config repo, and when they see a change here, they do that cycle of observe what's actually happening, observe what the intent is, what's the difference between them, act on it, and they actually do the deployment. So that's a pull thing. One of the side benefits of GitOps is that we have now a full history of all the things that have ever been deployed to this cluster. And we can actually look at, and we'll look in the demo, you can see exactly what changed for each deployment. So we can go into that particular commit in that repo, and we can do a diff in GitHub, and we can see exactly what change was made for that deployment, which makes diagnosis of problems really easy. If we're doing CDP, continuous deployment to production, then this isn't a dotted line, this is a solid line, and this actually, there's no human here, and that would actually, so for master, there's the master build, it gets pushed to the production registry, and then this will pick it up, all that from there, and these dotted lines, I've drawn them dotted because if you're just doing continuous delivery instead of continuous deployment, then you would have a human that says, right, okay, now I want to release that, and this just says to Argo, okay, now you can sync this. So these are on auto sync, this is a manual sync, but it could easily, the only thing you have to do to change them from CD to CDP is to change that from manual to automatic. So we'll look at that as well. Demo. Right. This is where it could all go wrong. The demo gods have a dim view of this sort of thing. So this is a really noddy application. It's a proof of concept for some auth thing that we did a long time ago. I'm only using it because it's old and I can change it very easily without anyone caring or noticing. We're going to we're going to change this button from red to green, and we're going to push that through the CI/CD process, and we're going to watch it flow through. And you'll see it takes about 90 seconds or something, and we should see it go green, and then we're going to look at rolling back and fixing it forward or whatever. So hopefully, if everything works well, this should be quite nice to watch. So this is our mono repo, and this is the color here of the button, which doesn't look great on that screen, but it's red. So I'm going to change it to green, like that. So now I've got, change that. Now I've got a change here, which is from red to green. So this is the source code of the application. I'm going to commit this. I've got an open pull request, which we'll look at in a second. So this is going to be button to green or something. Commit that. Now, when I push it up, build kite is going to immediately notice, because it's on a webhook, it's going to immediately notice that there's a change, and it's going to start building it. So we have to be quick because we want to see it. We want to see it going through. So first of all, let's push it anyway. So this is build kite. We should see my build's 1. So there's the builder started button to green. So the very first thing we do is analyze the mono repo to see what actually changed. And it will notice that the only thing that's changed actually is this noddy or flow POC, hopefully. On. So it should create a pipeline for me. Come on. Bloody hell. OK, so it's noticed that this is the actual software that's going to create the image that pushes the registry. And this is actually the last bit, which updates the GitOps repo. So this is building the Docker image, and it's a bit boring because it takes a few seconds. And it's going to build a Docker image, and you should see all the steps come through in a second. I don't know why it's being so slow. I suppose that's what happens when you try and demo things. It wants to use cached layers from previous builds if it can, so it pulls down old stuff. Jeez. Wow. Sorry, I don't know why. I don't know why it's so slow. Come on. Last time I did this, it took 90 seconds, obviously, because I'm hoping it's not going to. Wow. What is it? Why is that? I can't believe it. Well, we could look at a previous one. Just see if it speeds up. This is not good, is it? Anyway, while it's doing that, we will look at a previous one because actually let's do, I can do it here. So I changed it from 4 hours ago, and so here's one we did earlier. So this is it building. You see, it took, what did it take last time? Ran in 2 minutes. Okay. And then finally, when it's actually built and pushed this image up to the registry, it then updates the config repo. So I want it to do that for us because is it finished yet? Okay. So now it's actually building the web application. I don't know why that took so long with the network. This should take about 30 seconds or so. And then what will happen is, then what will happen is that it will update the config repo. So this is the config repo. And so for each of these commits, we can see exactly what happened. So this was from CI. The only change was the tag for the image. So it's saying, look, I've got a new image for you, deploy it. So hopefully if that finishes, So it's like watching paint dry, isn't it? As soon as this is Argo CD. So all the applications are listed here, all the services that are running, and the UIs and all the stuff that's running on the cluster. And for each of these, we've got all of the different things. So this is a pod. This is the actual application. So this is what we want to see change. This is the current version, which is rendering us a red button. So as soon as this moves on to the next stage, yeah, it's nearly done, 74 seconds. Then Argo CD will notice this will start spinning because it's noticed that there's a new version to be deployed. Synchronization will start kicking in. This will, a new one will be started with the new image in it. When that's up and running and the health checks are passed, then the old one will be destroyed. And then when we refresh the page, we'll see a green button. That's what's going to happen, hopefully. Okay, we're there now. Right, so it's actually now updating the config repo. So any second now, we'll see this start to spin. And it will notice immediately that it's out of sync. It will. It will. Yeah, don't ever do live demos. They never, ever work. So it's done it, right? So, oh, there we go, right? So that's setting on the webhook as well. And it should notice immediately that it's out of sync and it needs to change the application. So this is, so out of sync, there we go. And a synchronization has started. Synchronization will involve starting up a new pod. There it is, it's in the next stage. It will download the new image, spin it up, run it, pod initializing. Got 2 containers in the pod because of Istio. One's the sidecar. So it's running the sidecar already. Now it's starting up the actual application. So that goes to 2 of 2. This will, so the health checks are passed. This will start to die, and we can refresh the page. I don't know what is it with GCP networking? It's like maybe they're on a go slow or something. Because it's at the moment it's like initializing that second container. So when I did this afternoon, it went through like in seconds. While we're waiting for that to happen, there is a history of all the deployments, so we can see, and we can actually roll back to any previous. So if it wasn't with this deployment, we can roll back really, really quickly. This is good. Anyway, I want that to just go. We're losing time now, so because when I refresh this, I want the green button. Oh, Victor, why is it this one? What? I don't understand it because it is responding to health. Okay. All right. Well, don't ever do live demos. So that now we've only got one, and when we refresh, we've got a green button. Okay. That is ridiculous. Okay, normally that takes about 90 seconds. Maybe it's just because we're watching it. But the idea is that the only thing I actually did was commit and push my code to GitHub. I didn't do anything else, and then the deployment automatically happened. And if it was a merge to master, then the deployment to production would have happened as well. So in that diagram, let's go back to the slides. In this diagram, we push this, that all kicked off. longer than I thought. Pushed to the registry, updated the image tag. This was what we were waiting for. Noticed there was a change, said it was out of sync, resynchronized, pulled the image down, started a new pod, and that's like the new version of the application running. And the same thing would happen in production if it was a master build. Okay, wow. So this is all so that we can recover really quickly. What I wanted to do as part of the demo, which we probably don't have time for now, is to actually roll back so that we could go back to a red button. So if there was a problem, we can get out of it very quickly, and we can go back to any previous version. We can also see what the change was in the GitHub repo, and so we can get to if there's problems, we can get there quickly. But monitoring and observability is absolutely crucial. Sean mentioned it. I haven't talked about it much at all, really, but we need to be able to see into our cluster to see how applications are behaving. We talked about declaration of desired state and reconciliation loops. Not much about immutability. We need fast, robust, and idempotent CDP that we can just push stuff through. Also so fast today. We need to be able to fix forward quickly. So now, because we've got an automated route to production, we can make changes quickly. And because these changes are really small, they're fresh in everyone's heads. We know what was changed, and this allows us to test in production, which is what Sean was talking about. So we separate our releases from deployments. We can release features, build features up in production behind feature flags, and then we can use something like SDO to route traffic to different instances, one with a feature flag enabled, one without the feature flag enabled, and we can like ramp up the number of users that we allow onto the new feature, 1%, 2%, 3%. There are even some things, these operators that run inside the cluster that will do that automatically. So they're constantly looking for errors, and if there aren't any errors, it just keeps winding the deployment, the canary over effectively, until it starts erroring, and then it wind it back or whatever. So we can have bugs in production. We will have bugs in production. We can use production as a testing environment. We can't reproduce the whole, like, you imagine Facebook or Google, there isn't another whole Facebook that they just use for testing stuff, and they test in production. And you couldn't have two that were two environments exactly the same anyway, because it's just too complex and too big to be able to make sure that it's absolutely the same. So we can do our best to make sure that the quality is there, and we've got lots of things to stop us on the way, but it's automated into production and new features are behind a flag, and we can test with real users in a controlled fashion. And we have error budgets of Google site reliability engineering stuff, but we need a great observability story in order to be able to see exactly what's going on. That's it. And I'm sorry. It took so long. You want to plug your laptop back in?
Any things on after this next?
No. Where's the other laptop?
Thank you, Stu, and for everybody else for bearing with the demo gods. We did have some other slides, but I'm just going to go freestyle because we haven't got any more. So firstly, thank you very much to all of our speakers tonight. I think some things to take away are really around that technology can enable continuous delivery, but actually the skills and the people and actually the culture, the organizational culture is what really matters when it comes to doing continuous delivery properly. I think some ways to get towards continuous delivery, some sort of like key points are, firstly, it's good to start with what you have. I mean, this is the holy grail where you can hopefully do it in 90 seconds, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But it's a journey, and nobody's expecting it to be perfect first time. The second thing is that you need to think about the skills within your own organization, and to win hearts and minds often requires quite a lot of work, actually, in our opinion. Anyone else remember what the other things were we were going to say? Yes, so I think with that, we'll start with the Q&A. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask our speakers? I've got some starters if anybody wanted to. Okay, so I think I actually have a question, which is, Reg, you talked really succinctly about how you measure success on your road to continuous delivery. But from a business perspective, how do you win them over that this is the right approach?
Yeah, it's a good one. I tell them, and then they do what I tell them. So it's amazing. No, I think it's like it all starts with just little successes. So once you can show that you can do this stuff and that it actually adds value really quickly. So we started. So this menu update that I was talking about, like launching the salad, that took 2 months. But in the same time, like basically 6 weeks, we have rebuilt the entire menu system. And that's through APIs and then also the consuming front end for that. So just showing that difference and showing like, oh, normally that would take you 2 months, but now we've rebuilt the whole thing in 6 weeks. And if you can start showing that sort of value, people start understanding how quickly they can move, and then they feel more confident that they can move forwards.
Thank you. Okay, we had another question on Slido, which was trunk-based deployment. Is it the northest of North Stars? I have no idea what that means. Who wants to fill this one? Go on.
I didn't understand the question. What?
Is there anything better than trunk-based deployment?
Oh, trunk-based, right? So if it's a chunk-based, I think, what's that? Okay. So I personally think it is a North Star because, and a lot of big organizations do this, Google do it, Facebook do it, where you effectively stay as close to the master branch as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can. Thank you. So if you have feature branches, then your branch is away from master and it's diverging from master. The longer it's away from master, the further it diverges and the harder it is to get back. So the closer you stay to master, the easier that changes, and lots of little changes. So there is only one thing, and that is the production environment. Right, that is the only thing that matters. And as we said, it's hard to replicate, but we make attempts at having like staging environments or preview environments where we can test and validate and do quality control in those environments. You could imagine that there is just effectively one route to production, and that's the master branch, and you could commit directly to the master branch, potentially small changes, and they just go straight into production. And it's just a constant flow. It goes through all the environments, all the quality control, gets knocked back if there's a problem, if a test fails or whatever. But effectively, if it gets into production, it's considered safe. And if there's a problem there, we can revert out of that quickly as well, because we've got like really good monitoring and a good story there. So, I think you could argue. I mean, I suppose in a way, it's like getting lots of little tiny pebbles on a conveyor belt. They're all the same size and they're all the same distance apart, and they're all falling off into a bucket at the end. If you've got a feature branch, when that branch gets merged, you're putting all of those changes onto that branch at one time. So now you've got a big pebble on the conveyor belt, and another big pebble on the conveyor belt, and they're further apart, and we're bunching up these changes. And we're not really doing continuous deployment anymore or continuous delivery anymore. What we're doing now is we're throwing a whole load of changes into production at once. So I think very, very short-lived feature branches, or as close to master as you possibly can, and potentially even committing to master. I mean, we don't do that. One of the reasons why we don't commit to master is because if you're using a branch, you've got a pull request and you've got a vehicle for having a discussion about what's happening within the team, which I think is a really useful thing, and you don't want to lose that. So it's a bit of a mix.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question. Any questions from the audience first, actually? Any other questions? How long does it take to implement continuous delivery, and are you ever really done? Sean. Okay.
As long as you want, and no, you're never done. But I mean, actually, like Harry, what you mentioned in your recap is just like that whole thing. Like it's a journey, right? So it's like, are we doing continuous delivery? How do you measure it, right? Like, what is the ultimate like dream that you've been sold, right? It's that whole idea that like we can take the time that we cycle through our full system, every time we're putting customer value out there, trying to reduce that time is sort of the yardstick to go by. So when you can take that initial idea, turn that into customer value, I would say I'd use that as sort of the North Star of like the productivity of your organization. And the practices around like engineering for continuous delivery are just ways to shorten that time. And that's what we know is great today. And that's what we're like trying to, partner with our clients on and get them on the way. There will be a new thing tomorrow, but I think that's always going to be like the general yardstick for the organizations, right? It's about taking that time between the idea and the customer value and making it as short as possible. And so, yeah, I don't think we'll ever be done with it. There will always be ways to make that shorter and just like, we'll have human brain interfaces one day, and then you'll just be able to do it at the speed of thought. Like we can't see what that stuff's going to be, but it's the same principle, right? Customer value, whatever it might be, right? This is what we think it is today. I don't know how I got into that. Sorry.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, we have another one with. I'm not entirely sure I understand this, but deliver safely and progressively. So feature flags with percentage rollout or some other way. Who wants to take that one? Go on, Stu. Oh, this is Joe Pace.
Microphone holder.
I think yeah. Can you read the question again?
Okay, it says, deliver safely and progressively. So feature flags with percentage rollout or some other way.
So I think that's a really good way of doing it. You could, in an ideal world, I think every new feature would have been building up in production behind a feature flag for a long time. Like while it's building up in production, that's real code that is executing in the production environment, and maybe that feature is only being accessed by like one person potentially. Maybe that's the developers or the testers or whatever, or maybe it's like 10 people, which is like the people in the office, or maybe it's however you segment your audience. Could be 1%, could be 2%, could be automatically raised, but it's a potentially not finished feature behind a flag with a very limited audience, which you can get feedback early from, and you can understand exactly how it's working, how it behaves, how it works with everything else. It's like bringing the blast radius as small as possible, because like if it goes wrong, it's only affected one person. I think you still have to be very defensive. So if it does go wrong, say you've got it out to like 1% of users and you've got like 10 million users or whatever, like 1% is still quite a lot of users. So you still have to be quite careful about making sure that if it does fail, because effectively it's still beta, or it's like if it does fail, that it fails nicely for those users so that they don't actually really notice. There are like you can be really defensive about how that part of the application or that feature degrades. Like so, it should gracefully degrade so that if it's not working properly, it's not a massive problem. Does that answer the question? I don't know. But I think that is the question.
I don't know who submitted the question, but please shout if it didn't answer your question. Okay. Is Nandos using Next.js? Do you build or export? I'm going to ask Reg this one.
No.
Can you give us a bit more detail?
So, sorry, I'll stand up.
You have to come and stand here, sorry.
Make me walk. It depends on what we're talking about. So we have loads of still historical stuff that we're working on, but most of our effort goes into our mobile apps. So it's all in React Native, and that's where most of our changes happen. So will we be using Next.js? Potentially, I think is the answer.
Thank you. I think this might be my favorite question. Oh, really?
And that was so you export to a PS. You'd export to like a set of static files. That's presumably what the question was about, I think. And you could export frequently, so it feels like a bit of a dynamic site. You know, it's constantly being updated. But no, we build probably use a CDN or something for caching.
Yeah. So the next one is probably my favorite question. Like alcoholism, any good question starts like that. The first step to recovery is acceptance. How do you get senior leadership in an organization to accept/understand that they have a problem?
So I guess I'm part of the senior leadership. To make me an alcoholic, I don't know. I think it's like the measurements we put in place is like it's trying to indicate how often we fail, how often things go wrong, and how it's impacting us. So while Nandos is like a very forgiving environment, like we can make mistakes, it's okay to make mistakes in Nandos, but that does impact us, and we need to learn from those things, right? So I think it's only when we talk about blast radiuses, when we like really truly understand the impact of, for example, a menu item being launched with the incorrect pricing and how it affects our trading, right? So it's like if we're wrong by 10% on an item, that massively affects us, right? We have like over 67 million customers that come, or 60 million sales that happen, and that really, really makes a big difference. So it's only when you really start communicating like these small changes that's happening downstream that nobody cares about. It's only when you start showing that the impact that has is so vast that people start really understanding it, and they start going like, maybe there is something we should do about this. We should make this thing better. It's like, it's only when those sort of things happen that you like it's really exposed. And then we're just really trying to start showing like with measures again, like how does that impact our customers? Like, so getting better analytics in terms of how customers are experiencing the things that we are putting out there, like how do they feel about it and all those sort of things. And being able to say we're losing, like, so we look at like how often people come back to Nandos, right? And what we're seeing at the moment is like, it's like dipping down. Like normally people come 4 times a year, right? So, and it's now 3.9 times, right? So that's like, it's only a small change, right? But when we think about what that means to us, that's about 180 million pounds, right? Like just that small change, and just by like looking at the customer experience. So it's that important. And so it's just exposing that sort of information. So it's all about information and like showing those measures that you really then start to impact your senior management.
Thank you. Another good question. How problematic is it to migrate from one CI/CD service to another?
I think it should be easy, right? Like we live in a world where we build things from lots of little components, like Lego blocks, lots of different tools, all working together. And the whole idea of microservices is all based around that as well. Lots of little small things that can easily, independently be changed, updated, removed, replaced with something else. And so, you know, if you've built your system correctly, then you should be able to replace any of those components with another component that does a similar job quite easily. So there's lots of different CI/CD systems and lots of different tools. We saw that CNCF list of stuff that's under its umbrella. Lots and lots of choice, lots and lots of options, all slightly different, some better than others. And I think you can and you should be constantly evaluating what the landscape looks like, and you should be willing to change and eager to change one component for another component if that component is better. Like build kite's great, but people use Circle CI, people use Travis, people use all sorts of different CI systems, and it should be really straightforward-ish to just pull one out and put another one in. Probably isn't as simple as that, but it should be.
I will also just say the fact that we've split out CI and CD actually makes replacing CI a lot easier, right? So it's like if you break your tools into modular components the same way you do with microservices, replacing them becomes a lot easier.
Great. Are there any other questions from the audience at all? Okay, thank you. Okay, so massive thank you to our speakers this evening. I think to summarize, as I was trying to do earlier, I still don't have any slides, so still can't remember a thing, but I was trying to remember it off the top of my head. So the first thing is that it's a cultural mind shift that you have to take your organization through, and it's a journey that you need to evaluate what you already have and start from there. It's small, low-hanging fruit type decisions that will help you on that journey. What else have I got written down? You need to think about your release strategy. So to Sean's point, thinking about actually how you're going to get things into production and what kind of quality benchmarks essentially you want to build into your process prior to getting there, which is really important. Decoupling releases from deployments, again, another really important point. And making sure that you're supporting your teams, so both technical and non-technical teams with different tools and different processes to make everybody feel part of that journey is really important. And we can help. This isn't supposed to be a big sales pitch, but essentially we can do a bit of a diagnosis about where your business is from a technical standpoint or even a business standpoint, how mature your business is and how easy it would be to implement. But also we can help you with internal conversations. So if you need to win hearts and minds across the business, then we are absolutely happy to help some of this hard to stakeholder conversations about why does it matter, essentially. That's it. I'm going to stop talking now. Please grab another drink. We'll be heading to the pub in about 15 minutes. If you've got any further questions, please do ask our speakers directly. But thank you so much for coming and giving up your Thursday to be here. Thanks.